Tonight we are curing some freshly caught coho eggs from this morning, and you know, these are really good eggs in a sense based on the size and the fact of the maturity of this this particular fish. The eggs still have a lot of skin around them on the skein. Okay, so there's a lot of skin that surrounds the skein. They're open up on the bottom, which they always are, but a lot of the skin or the membrane hasn't begun to break away off of the eggs, so they're held together pretty good. So that for me is first step. I look at the eggs and decide how intact or not they are. If they're really loose and coming apart, it's going to direct me in my decision-making process on what type of cure I'm going to use. I'll get into that in just a second. I want to remind you, when you catch a fish, it's imperative that you bleed your fish, okay? Don't beat its skull in with a bat to the point that it's just absolutely not moving. The best way to get the most volume of blood out of your fish is to allow the heart to pump as much blood out of that fish as you can. Fish that I catch in the river, I seldom ever hit. I simply reach in, rip their gill, or cut it with scissors or a knife, and I allow that, you know, I'll just hold on to their tail and just let them bleed out right there in the river. If you're in a boat, you got a bucket or something you can put them in, or hang them over the side. Either or, the key there is for quality of meat and quality, especially on your hens for your eggs, get all the blood out. You get that gill bleed going and let that heart evacuate as much blood out of the body as you can, and it's going to go a long ways. These eggs, when I got done today, you can look from overhead here, they are extremely clean. There is hardly any blood left in these eggs. There's a little bit in this shorter skein, and I'm going to show you just with the straight edge of this knife, or I can use scissors to do the same thing, in how we get the blood out of the eggs and how we get these into sizable sections and butterflied so we can put the cure on. For me, I'm just going to use this knife, and I'm going to take all these little feeder veins, and I'm going to push that blood into that main vein running along the base of these eggs here, okay? And then I'm simply down at the base here. I'm going to put a little cut in that vein. I'm going to use my paper towel on this end. And one thing I can tell you is the fresher the eggs are, the easier that blood travels through that vein. See how I can just push it down to the bottom end here? And then ultimately I just wick it out of there with this paper towel. It just pulls the blood right out of the vein, and it takes the blood out of the eggs. Now, if the eggs are a couple days old, you're going to find that blood gets a little bit coagulated inside the vein, and it doesn't travel as good, but you can still force it along the vein and get it out. So don't give up on it because you think it's too complicated. The more blood you get out of the eggs, the better they cure, the better they preserve. Blood likes to spoil and begins to take on a smell of its own, so you want to try to get as much blood out of there as you can. Now that I have these skeins pretty much blood free, they're nice and clean, I got to think about what size of baits I'm going to cure. For me, I like to do skein size that fit in my bait box, because I will wear a bait box with cured eggs on a skein, and I use scissors to cut the bait to the size I want to fish when I'm at the river. If I know I'm predominantly going after coho, I'll cut my bait pieces a little smaller. If I know I'm fishing for chinook, I'll make them a little bit larger, and/or for chum. So I let the river and the conditions dictate the size of bait I want to cut and/or fish, so I don't pre-cut all my bait sizes. What I simply do is I'll take this longer skein here, and I'm going to cut it in half, really sharp knife so it doesn't smash the eggs and it goes right through. Now, because I have to get the cure down inside of this skein, I like to take and simply butterfly them. I'll lay it here like this so you can see it. We're just going to cut right down along that skein. Just really easy, hardly any pressure on the eggs at all, and it just butterflies that skein right open. I can do the same right along here, just kind of opening that skein up so I can get more cure in there. This one here, the length of that isn't too terribly bad, so we can just cut down along here and get that skein opened up, okay? Now I'm not cutting all the way through the skin. I just want it butterflied so it stays intact, it holds together really well, okay? So now these skeins are butterflied open. You can see it lays flat. I can get a lot of cure in and around all them eggs. The skin's intact on the back side. As these cure up and that skin toughens up, it's going to hold the eggs together real nicely, and they're not going to fly apart so easily when I put them on my, or put them in my egg loop and cast them. So let's talk a little bit about, cure options, all right? In front of me, I have here two different options, both basically the same color, provided by Pautzke's bait. Now, the Baraxo is ideally engineered for steelhead fishing and curing up eggs for steelhead. It doesn't have any sulfites. It's a salt and sugar mixture that steelhead tend to be drawn towards. This here fire cure is more of a sulfite-based, or is a sulfite-based cure. Now, one thing we know about salmon, the further upriver they go, the more they crave salts and sulfites. The lower in the system they are, they tend to have a sweet tooth. So I like to mix batches and interchange things to make my cures on the lower end. Earlier I was talking about that estuary water and that tidal influence. The baits I fish in that lower water will have a lot more sugar base to them than sulfites. When I get further up in the river, I tend to use bait cures with more sulfite. That being said, sulfite-based cures do not toughen up your skein as much as non-sulfite-based cures. So it's finding a balance. And for me, these Coho eggs they have enough skin around them and they're durable enough. I can use a sulfite-based cure and they're going to cure them up real nice and the eggs are still going to be tough. If this was from a large Chinook, big mature Chinook skeins with a lot of skin that's getting loose, I like to take my Baraxo and I dump it into a container, and I've put the recipe out there before, and if you guys ask for it, I'll put it out there again, just messages up here. But I will take a full container of Baraxo and I dump it into a container. I add into it a half cup of white processed sugar. I'll dump into it 2 heaping tablespoons of the krill powder to add more krill scent to it. And I will add into there, and you can find it at most of your stores that sell any type of bait products, I will put in 1 or 2 heaping tablespoons of sodium sulfite. So I'm adding my own sodium sulfite base to a cure that for me toughens up looser skinned eggs than a tremendously strong sulfite-based cure. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. It's mixing and matching and creating something that has more sugar, but yet a little more sulfite for bite stimulant. But it also, because of the basis of this Baraxo, it toughens the eggs up real nice. So just something to go with. Now to start off with here, I'm going to go with this sulfite-based cure, and we're going to put that Baraxo the fire cure on here, and make sure you remove the little gasket seal that's in there. It doesn't take a lot of cure. Now, one thing I do is I buy these puppy pads. If you're going to be curing a lot of eggs, puppy pads are fantastic because you can cover your whole workstation here and all the extra juices and things if you're processing a lot of eggs. Puppy pads work great to keep everything clean. Then I set them on paper towels, and I'll show you why in a second, because once I get the cure on here, I don't really want to pick them up if I don't need to and get that cure all over my hands, because it just makes an absolute mess. So we're just going to add some of this fire cure onto these eggs, a pretty decent amount, but not going crazy with it, okay? So just shake it out of the old container here, and you can watch as it starts turning color. And I don't get all caught up putting it on both sides. I mostly just will put it on the one side because the work all happens once we get it inside the bag. You can use containers, you can use bowls, you can use bags, whatever. So a light dusting, pretty much covering most of the egg pretty good. Again, not going crazy with it because it is a sulfite-based cure. Now, a few weeks ago I showed you guys how to make dry scented powders out of different fleshy fish options, mackerel, sardine, tuna belly, which takes forever but well worth it, herring, anchovy. You got your choice. I'm going to go ahead and mix these up with my tuna belly. It has an amazing amount of scent, and I know that these different natural oils now that I'm putting onto these eggs via a homemade powder do wonders for bite stimulant. So there you go. Just simply put your cure on, put your home brew of your powder of choice onto your eggs, and now you've just created something that even if the fisherman or lady downriver or upriver from you is fishing fire cure eggs, they're doing good, but they're not doing as good as you because you have a completely different scent you're putting into the water. I take my Ziploc bag, I mark on here Coho, I mark on here TB for tuna belly. I have fire cure. I'm also going to add a little bit of nectar in here to add some extra egg juice. So now it's just simply I open up my bag, okay, and now I'm going to pick up my paper towels. Remember I said if I don't need to get my hands all over the eggs, I don't. And I slide them in the bag like this and just dump them right on in there, okay? And then there you go. The mess is all in the paper towel, no big deal. Now I can look at that and think, well, do I have enough cure on there? I can add more cure right now, which would be fine, or I can also wait and see what these eggs are going to do. Remember, excuse me, we're using a sulfite-based cure, so I don't want to put too much cure on there. And what happens is these eggs will begin to juice out. In other words, every single egg on this skein is filled with a liquid, okay? There's a real small hole that you cannot see, obviously, in each egg. The cure is designed to draw the liquid out of the egg. So after a few hours, these eggs will be bathing in basically red juice in here, okay? Now the process of curing is to extract the water or the liquid out of the eggs, and then over time, at room temperature, the eggs will draw that liquid back into them, and then the egg seals up. That individual hole seals up, and the egg is volumized with fluid, has color, has all the scent trapped inside, and the skein has become tougher, and that's basically your cured bait. So from here, this process takes a few hours. I like to take the first couple hours, and about every 20 minutes or so, you know, sip your beer, sip your coffee, whatever. You're out here in your garage, you're in your bait room. You're just going to gently tumble these around and mix that cure up and get those eggs juicing out. All that liquid you see on the bag now is the juice coming out of the eggs. Now I'm going to let that sit. 20, 30 minutes go by as it builds juice in here. I'm going to come out here again. I'm going to roll this around gently. It's not a shake and bake kind of a move. It's just a gentle tumble, and they begin to juice out. Now, one thing I can do to help expedite the process, and actually it aids in the volumization of these eggs as they reabsorb, I like to, more times than not, I'll take a little bit of this Pautzke's nectar, which is 100% egg juice from when they cook down all the salmon eggs to make your trout eggs. And I'm just going to pour a little bit of nectar in here as a little extra juice. It hurts nothing. It actually adds to the ability of these eggs to juice out and reabsorb. And it helps disperse that powder cure equally amongst the entire amount of eggs that's here in the bag, okay? But again, the process is the same. We're just going to roll this around and get that cure going so that it begins to cure those eggs equally. Now, after a few hours, and again, I advocate room temperature, especially this time of year out in your garages and stuff, it's probably 60-something degrees, which is ideal. After these eggs have juiced out and they're sitting there bathing in juice for a couple hours, I'm going to simply pop the seal. I'm going to roll the majority of the air out of the bag, and I'm going to let that bag sit in my garage for the next at least 12 hours or so, just letting those eggs sit in all that juice and reabsorb as much juice as they're going to reabsorb, okay? Then after at least 12, if not 24 hours, you can put those in the fridge, or you can put them in the freezer if you're not going to use them. You don't need to strain the juice off. You don't need to do anything. When you strain the juice off is right before you're going to fish them if you feel like you need to get rid of some of the excess juice. If you put these eggs in the refrigerator too soon, like right after you put the cure on them, they're only going to partially cure, because as you cool these eggs down, they tighten up, the hole shrinks up, they don't reabsorb all that juice back into the eggs, be volumized as much as they can. When you put them in the water, they don't have that nice milk cloud coming off of them because you prematurely put them in the fridge. Leave them out at room temperature for at least a 12 to 24 hour period. Let them reabsorb, cure, soak in, let it do its thing, and you're going to be much happier with the results. That's the starting on curing eggs. Again, we cure because of the tight skein. We've added a little extra scent. These have a good 12-hour, cook time, so to speak, at room temperature. Then I would refrigerate them, and/or they're ready to fish or freeze. Perhaps next week we'll go into phase 2 to show you what that process looks like and what these look like when they're all cured. All right, you got any questions relative to egg cure, bait cure, anything to do with Pautzke products? Hit us up here at FHN Northwest. And with that, we'll jump out for a quick commercial break. We'll be back right here after this.